The Blueprint of Purpose. By the age of 24, my brother Jamie and I had built an empire out of echoes. Our company, Sonic Sphere, was a local legend. We designed and installed high-end, integrated smart home systems for the wealthy and tech-obsessed. We'd started with nothing but a soldering iron, a beat-up van, and a desperate shared hunger to escape the quiet desperation of our hometown. The first 2 years, 2021 to 2022, were a beautiful, brutal siege. We were digital privateers, and the city was our ocean. Jamie, the extroverted visionary, would charm his way into the drawing rooms of architects and interior designers. I, the introverted engineer, would disappear into the skeletal frames of half-built mansions, my world a tangle of Cat6 cables, speaker wire, and complex control panels. We worked 18-hour days, our lives a cycle of caffeine, code, and client appeasement. We slept in the van between jobs, our breath fogging the windows, dreaming in schematics and profit margins. We weren't just building systems, we were building a reputation. We became the guys who could make a house sing. With a single voice command or a tap on a tablet, our clients could orchestrate their environment. Lights dimming to a perfect mood, hidden speakers filling the air with a flawless soundscape. Security systems so seamless they were invisible until needed. We sold them control, convenience, and a curated reality. And it paid off, spectacularly. By 2024, Sonic Sphere was a well-oiled machine. We operated from a sleek, minimalist office downtown. We had a team of 5 technicians, a project manager, and an office administrator. Jamie and I were no longer installers. We were strategists and facemen. Our work week was a comfortable 4 days. Our calendar was filled with golf games, long lunches, and client meetings that felt more like social calls. We had achieved the dream: financial stability, professional respect, and the freedom to enjoy the fruits of our labor. The money was more than stable. It was a flood. We bought a large modern house together, a decision born of habit and a lingering twin language that made separate homes feel like amputation. We filled it with the very technology we sold, a living, breathing advertisement for our own success. Life was a smooth, predictable algorithm, and it was slowly draining our souls. The comfort we had fought for became a gilded cage. Every project, no matter how grand, felt like a variation on a theme. A bigger house, a more expensive audio system, a more obscure brand of Italian light switch. We were solving the same problems with increasingly luxurious components. The chaotic, creative thrill of the early days, the will this work panic, the euphoria of a system booting up for the first time, was gone, replaced by the hum of predictable success. I started to feel like a ghost in my own life. I walked through our own automated house, the lights flicking on before me, the climate control maintaining a perfect 72 degrees, and feel nothing. The house was an echo chamber, reflecting back a version of myself I no longer recognized. The hunger that had once been a fire in my gut was now just a pile of cold ashes. We had reached the pinnacle, and the air was thin and unsatisfying. Then, in the fall of 2024, I hit a breaking point. It was during the commissioning of a $200,000 system for a tech billionaire's smart pool house. The client was complaining that the voice activation for the waterfall was a half-second too slow. As I stood there, nodding, making a note on my tablet, I had a sudden visceral memory of Jamie and me, covered in dust, cheering when we got a single, cheap smart bulb to respond to a clap in our first rented studio. The joy in that moment was raw, real. The feeling in this multi-million-dollar pool house was nothing, just a checklist item. That night, I didn't go home. I drove to the old industrial park where we'd rented our first tiny unit. It was gone, replaced by a generic self-storage facility. I sat in my car, the silence of the luxury sedan feeling oppressive, and I cried. Not tears of sadness, but of a profound existential frustration. We had everything we'd ever wanted, and it meant nothing. My salvation came from an unexpected, almost primal place. Desperate for an outlet, for something that wasn't digital, sterile, or predictable, I signed up for a weekend pottery class. It was a whim, a joke I made to Jamie about getting my hands dirty again. The moment my fingers sunk into the cold, wet clay, something shifted in me. It was a sensory shock, the gritty, cool slip, the earthy smell, the absolute, unforgiving physicality of it. This was the antithesis of my world. There were no voice commands here, no lines of code to debug, no clients to placate. There was only the spinning wheel, the centrifugal force, and the fragile, nascent form between my hands. I was terrible at it. My first attempts collapsed into sad, muddy pancakes. My bowls were lopsided, my vases had walls too thick to be useful and too thin to be stable. But I was hooked. The challenge was absolute. It was me versus the physics of earth and water. It demanded a focus so complete that it silenced the constant anxious hum of my thoughts. It was a form of meditation that left me covered in mud and utterly, profoundly calm. I started going 3 times a week, then every day. I bought a second-hand wheel and set up a makeshift studio in our garage, much to my Jamie's bemusement. "You're coming home smelling like a riverbank," he'd joke, but I could see the concern in his eyes. This wasn't a hobby. It was an obsession. The parallels were impossible to ignore. Centering clay on the wheel was the most fundamental, difficult skill. If the clay wasn't perfectly centered, everything that followed would be flawed, no matter how skilled you were. It was all about foundation. In our business, we'd spent years building on top of systems without ever questioning if the core was truly centered. Our lives felt the same, off kilter, destined to wobble and collapse under their own weight because the foundation was hollow. One evening, after a particularly frustrating session where I'd ruined a piece I'd been working on for hours, I had a breakthrough. The failure wasn't in the collapse of the clay, it was in my approach. I was trying to force it, to impose my will upon it. My teacher, a serene woman in her 60s named Alara, placed a hand on my shoulder. "You have to listen to the clay, Leo," she said softly. "Your hands aren't to command, they are to guide. You are having a conversation with the earth. You must understand what it wants to become." Listen, guide, conversation. The words struck me with the force of a revelation. At Sonic Sphere, we didn't listen. We imposed. We sold pre-packaged solutions. We gave people what we thought they wanted, but the market demanded. We weren't having conversations, we were delivering monologues through technology. I dragged Jamie to the studio. He was skeptical, arms crossed, watching me fumble with a lump of clay. But I made him sit at the wheel. I guided his hands, repeating Alara's words. He was stiff, resistant. Then, after 20 minutes of silent struggle, something clicked. The wobbling mass began to steady. A smooth, symmetrical cylinder emerged from the chaos. He didn't make a vase or a bowl, he just centered the clay. And when he looked up at me, his eyes held a spark I hadn't seen in years. It was the spark of a genuine, unmanufactured challenge met and conquered. Over the following weeks, the garage became our new war room. Covered in clay dust, we started talking. Really talking. Not about profit margins, but about purpose. The discipline of pottery, the patience, the acceptance of failure, the focus on a strong foundation had given us a new language. "We're just technicians," Jamie said one night, staring at a cracked bowl he was trying to salvage with a technique called kintsugi, where gold-dusted lacquer is used to repair broken pottery, embracing the flaws. "We're not connecting them to anything real. We're selling them an echo and calling it a song." "It's because we lost the foundation," I replied. The clarity was so sharp that it was painful. We got so good at the how that we forgot why we started. It was never about the money. It was about the making, the creating. The pottery mindset gave us the audacity to ask the terrifying question, what if we sold it all? What if we walked away from the empire we built and started over, this time with a centered foundation? What would we build if the goal wasn't convenience, but connection? Not control, but collaboration. The answer wasn't in a server rack or a voice-activated assistant. It was in the earth, in our hands, and in the spaces between people. We decided to sell Sonic Sphere. The fallout was immediate and intense. Our team thought we'd lost our minds. Our parents were aghast. "You've built a gold mine," our father boomed.